Hello, friends, and welcome to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. My name is Carla Moore, and I'm with my friend Kathy Pollard, and we're your hosts for this podcast. And it was born out of a desire. It was Kathy's idea. She thought it would be great to have an encouraging podcast for women where we talk about spiritual things, but also about friendship and about things that are just important to women, especially Christian women. And it has been a lot of fun. We've been doing this for 8 months now, and I've enjoyed it so much. And we just want to encourage all of you to look up and see the goodness in life and see what God is doing in your life and the lives of others. And so that's what our purpose is. So how are you doing today, Kathy?
Aside from this froggy voice problem, I'm doing great. So I feel like I should
introduce
apologize.
Our frogs.
Yes, we need a frog name if anybody wants to contribube.
Yeah, both of us.
I feel like I should apologize ahead of time. If it annoys you when I have to clear my throat, this is not the episode for you. Because even in our chit chat before we hit record, I kept going, excuse me, excuse me.
We should.
So yikes.
We should count how many times we say excuse me during this episode.
Okay.
Excuse me.
One.
Okay. So you have big news at your house.
Yes, we finally have a cow. She showed up Saturday afternoon, and her name is Peaches, and we've been settling into the whole routine, and it's been life-changing. Obviously, we knew that was coming, but overall, very fantastic. We have had a few little interesting moments. In fact, she's already escaped.
That didn't take long.
No, I think it was the first morning we had her on her own. So Jeremy has been, walking us through this step by step. And to this point, we've already had 10 milking sessions, and he's been with us for 4 of those. But our first one, Neil and me out there by ourselves, our very first one, she slipped out the gate and took off running.
Oh no.
And we both just looked at each other like, oh! And of course we're
toward the road.
Yeah, she didn't get that far, but she did get as far up as where we keep Pepe, and she did get as far back as where the brush pile is. And we're trying to lure her with her thing of feed. Come here, Peaches. And we've had her for less than 2 days, and she was still very skittish around us. And so anyway, that was not good, and took about half an hour for us to finally lure her back in. And so we've had moments like that. And then
how did she escape?
Well, that was kind of my fault. There's a little gate and a big gate in our barn. The little gate is for us to go in, and the big gate is for her. Well, I was carrying things in and out of the little gate, so I'd have everything prepared ahead of time for the milking session. And I just left it partially open. It didn't even dawn on me that she would try and walk through that, because she'd have to step up onto this platform and walk out this little door to get out. And that's exactly what she did. She just nudged that gate open. I had my back turned. I hear Neil yell my name, and I turn around, and Peaches is up there on the platform with me. And she just took off out the man door.
She saw her opportunity.
Yeah,
Freedom.
and ran. And there she is with her very full running like a puppy across the meadow. And I'm thinking, I'm just picturing her running down Motley Lane, causing a car accident, or already needing to call Jeremy. She escaped.
So she stopped, and then you.
We finally got her back. And actually, Neil got her back in, and because he kept telling me what to do, and I was like, fine, you do it if you think you know what to do. And he did do it. So
of course.
So now we know, keep both gates.
That's one of the first things John taught me. He was raised in the country, and he said, anytime you open a gate, you close it behind you every time. So I've learned that. Never had a cow escape, but I've never had a cow.
So we're learning her personality, and she has lots of it, and what she likes and doesn't like. And but she's warming up to us, and the sessions are getting a lot smoother. And so it's wonderful. I kind of thought we started out milking by hand. If Jeremy's there with us, it's not bad. If it's just us, it's really bad.
I think you should film it and share it. I
And
really do. I
it
really think
got
you should film it and
it
share it.
got to the point where, see, this is all the stuff you don't read about.
Mm-hmm.
I have read books, blogs, articles, you name it. I have for like years. I've been reading stuff. And you know how we talk about there's different words for knowledge,
Yes, I was just thinking
book
that.
knowledge and
Uh-huh.
experiential knowledge. This is
Yeah.
definitely a case
Yeah.
where experiential knowledge is way, way, way different. And Jeremy finally got to the point where he texted us and he was like, I'm kind of worried that she hasn't been milked out all the way since y'all been doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
can I bring over a milking machine just to make sure, you know? Well, he hooked that thing up and the difference is glorious. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's us out there agonizingly eking out milk. 45 minutes in, Peaches is getting restless, and
I'm
we
just imagining
still,
her rolling her eyes up there.
well, she has her way. First, she starts flicking her tail at us.
Yeah.
And then one time she just absolutely dropped on all fours and dented my expensive stainless steel seamless milking pail.
Uh-oh.
And so she just gets frustrated. You know, she's
Yeah.
out of feed. She's
Mm-hmm.
tired of waiting on us and she lets us know it. But anyway, so that milking machine does it in like less than 3 minutes
Is
and
it
milks her.
portable then? I guess it must be if he brought it over.
Well, it's two different parts. There's like a motor that stays out in the barn, and then the actual claw thing that hooks. I don't know the terms for these things, so now
Mm-hmm.
I sound like an idiot. But the claw thing that attaches is attached to a big milking pail, and I can carry that in and out to
Mm-hmm.
clean it and sterilize it, and empty out the milk and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, Jeremy just said, "I know you want to hand milk. You do what you want to do, but I'll leave this here if you want to use it." And really, we want Peaches to be happy. And she was
Yeah.
obviously way more comfortable and
Yeah.
happy with us
Mm-hmm.
using the machine. So that's what we're doing now.
Now weren't you gonna have two calves too?
We were,
Is
but
that coming later?
no, we decided to sell them.
Oh,
So we
okay.
wouldn't have to worry about different stalls and gates and all that kind of stuff. So we just
Okay.
went ahead and sold them. So now we're milking twice a day instead of once. But I'm glad. I'm glad we did that.
Yeah. Well, that's fun. Whoa. Just got a
Sorry.
little car sick there for a second.
Sorry. Yeah.
Well,
So
that's fun. And
anyway,
so
but
what
we're
all have you
already
done? What all have you done with the milk?
well, we've had milk and cream in our coffee. I've made yogurt twice. I've made mozzarella cheese.
Oh,
This
that's right. You
morning I
told me.
have ricotta cheese draining right now, and I'm also pulling out the cream to make butter. So we've been giving milk away to our kids, which that's what I kind of daydreamed about
Yeah.
doing. It tastes amazing. It really does.
Mm.
I am thrilled.
So it's still like real creamy and rich. I wonder what the milk fat is in that.
I don't know, but Jerseys give more cream, so
Mm-hmm.
it's good for you fat though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe I'll
good
get
for
to
your gut.
taste it sometime.
I'm sure you will. We are loaded.
Are you going to sell some of it?
It's illegal to sell raw milk in Kentucky.
Oh,
Yeah. So we have
well,
two full refrigerators and they're both completely full
well, but you'll be able to
already.
sell some of the things that you make with it, right? Like butter and
Mm-mm.
things. You can't do any of that, huh?
Nope. No, I
Well,
kind of initially that's what I really intended to put my emphasis on butter and making
mm-hmm.
butter and flavored butters and selling them and currently you can't do that legally. Some people have found ways around it, you know, like um they'll put on there for pet use only
Mm, yeah.
to sell their milk to
Mm-hmm.
legally get around doing that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, I'm excited for you. I know you've been waiting for that for a long time.
yes, I have, and it's been glorious, mostly
Mm-hmm.
glorious. We are
Mostly.
grateful. We are grateful for Jeremy and him being our training wheels and his patience through all of this. So,
He
and I
don't live too
really,
far, does he?
no, he's 5 minutes up the road, and
Okay.
I truly think that if we didn't have him here helping us, we would have been at a loss big time.
No, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So, what's up with you?
It's been a busy week. We got home from Tennessee and I had COVID.
Oh,
I think,
oh,
yeah, I think
oh, you
that
got the
probably
PTP flu or
plague.
bug or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
PTP plague.
Yeah. Well, I ended up testing and I thought about it and I wasn't going to. And I thought, well, my doctor has talked about this Paxlovid that she said would be available. And I just thought, I'll see. And so she called it in and it gave me a horrendous taste in my mouth.
Oh,
But I tested I tested positive. I mean, tested a negative on Sunday. It was fast and it wasn't bad at all. It feels like a cold. So I feel like I haven't heard of anybody being seriously sick after PTE. I mean, I've heard a lot of COVID spike going on right now, but I think it's very not nearly as serious as it was before. So anyway, I feel fine. I just still have the leftover little crud in my throat, but I wonder how many people did go home sick.
Yeah.
But it brought all those yucky feelings back from 2020, the isolation and, just the unknown of all is this going to be bad? I mean, I've had it once before. I had it last December, I think. And it's kind of like a couple of days of flu. But anyway, I'm doing fine now. It's fine. Good. And so
you look good.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, so we got home from Tennessee. We stayed home. That was kind of nice, actually, staying home several days because John stayed with me and we just got work done. And Tuesday night, we had ministry moments with Wes and Terry that we interviewed them. I think I mentioned it last season when we talked about what we do with the students. We just invite them over and then we have interviewed a different faculty member each time about what it is that they find to be happy and joyous and worthwhile in ministry. And so we got Wes and Terry to come and talk about his work with the church in Cambodia, with the school over there. He's the coordinator for the Cambodia Bear Valley School. You know that, but other people don't. So that was fun. And so that was going on. I went thrifting with the girls yesterday. I shouldn't call them the girls, they're women, with the Bear Valley women from the school.
Oh, fun.
It was.
Oh, group thrifting. Yeah. Did you share your superpowers with them?
Well, it was funny because I walk in the door and I'm like, okay, what's in here? What am I going to get? My radar's going off. And they're all like, oh, here's clothes. And, I went and I looked for stuff and they just went and played in the clothes. And I think they found some things, but it was good. It was a fun time. I enjoyed being with them. There was 6 of them. Well, yesterday, here, I'm going to turn this so you can see it, but if you're not watching, you can't.
Is that a dress dummy? Oh, yeah. That's cool. It looks very French.
Well, it's not meant for what I'm going to use it for, but I had bought one years ago and wore it out. But when I sell things on eBay, I can dress it. And it's just, it looks a lot better when it's draped on a dummy than hung up on a hanger or whatever. So I'm excited I found that. Earlier this week, I found a Yamaha guitar.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty excited about that. So
are you going to start playing?
No, I don't know what exactly I'm going to do with it. I may hang on to it because, sometimes people come over and they know how to play and it's fun to sit around and sing. Y'all do that all the time with your family. But I can probably also make a pretty good little profit if I put it on Marketplace. I don't want to sell it on eBay because then I'd have to ship that big box. So yeah. I'll try Marketplace. So that's kind of what's been going on here.
Very cool.
Nothing too exciting.
Well, gardening wise, I jotted down some things that I've made since the last time we talked. I made homemade enchilada sauce for the first time.
Yum.
And canned it. Oh. So now I can just pull that off the shelf anytime I want it. And I also made pizza sauce and canned it because we have tons of tomatoes. I'm just trying to figure out what to do with all these tomatoes. I made hot sauce.
What is in enchilada sauce?
It's really kind of fun to make. You use dried Mexican chilies, I guess you say. And so I used a couple different varieties, and we actually ended up having to go to a Mexican store to get them because our grocery, like the grocery stores in Colorado would have them in the regular grocery stores, but here I couldn't find them in any of our stores. So I had to go to a specialty grocery store. But you just kind of cut those up and scrape the seeds out and toast them in a pan with olive oil and other spices like cumin and chili powder and all that kind of stuff, and onions and garlic. Toast it for a while and then add your tomatoes and everything and let it simmer for a long time and puree and all that kind of stuff. So, but it smelled so good. And now that I know how easy, truly so easy to make, you don't even really need to can it. You can just throw that thing together in no time and use an immersion blender, and have homemade enchilada sauce instead of buying it, which I didn't know.
How did you toast it though? Just in a skillet?
Yeah, with olive oil. I put a little olive oil. No, I didn't. I dry toasted it. The peppers, you dry toast those first.
Which means no liquid?
Right. You just kind of stir them around so they don't burn. And then you add in, okay, so sorry, the peppers and spices you dry toast.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add in a little olive oil and chopped onions and garlic, toast it a little bit more. And then you add in all your tomatoes.
Okay.
That's
Tomatoes
how
is
you do it.
last.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
Mexican food in Texas, one of our favorite Mexican food restaurants is called Herbert's Taco Hut. That's where we planned our wedding. We just went there every
Oh,
Friday
that's
night. Yeah.
fun.
But that's
Fun
like
name.
well, he was a guy that he was the grandfather of a guy I went to high school with. But that gravy is it's almost like, I call it gravy, like a brown gravy, but it tastes like enchilada sauce. And so it's a little different. It's not, I don't know what yours looks like, if it's just like a red sauce or is it a
Yeah.
green sauce?
Have you ever bought red enchilada sauce in the can? It looks
Yeah.
just like that. Same consistency and texture and everything.
Well, I like that, but this gravy that they put on Mexican, well, I say not all Mexican food at Herbert's, I've tried to replicate and I just don't know how to do it. I've tried to
Ooh.
like mix regular enchilada sauce with a gravy type, just flour and oil or bacon grease. Can't do it. So I wish I could, but it sounds good.
Have you tried mixing enchilada sauce with a can of cream of mushroom soup?
Mm-mm. Maybe
I mean, it's not healthy or
it wouldn't
anything or
hurt.
organic or anything, but well, I make a enchilada casserole. It's flour tortillas that you spread a little sour cream on, and you layer that with whatever you're going to put in it. But I mix my enchilada sauce with a can of cream of mushroom soup and use that between my layers. It's really good.
Sounds good. I'm hungry right now. I started fasting again.
Oh, no.
We shall not talk about that.
I also have two different types of hot sauce in process right now because we grew hot cherry peppers this year. So I made one with just jalapenos and one with just hot cherries. So we're going to see. So one's
Never
green
heard
and
of hot cherry.
they're little round hot peppers.
Hmm.
And they're called hot cherry peppers. So we're going to see which one we like better. So one's green and one's red. And we're going to see. I think the hot cherry peppers are going to be hotter.
Okay.
Because they taste hotter just raw than the jalapeno peppers. But
do you feel the garden time coming to a close? Is it drawing near, or is
it
it going
kind
to
of
go on for a
feels
while?
like it just wants to keep going, but I'm ready for it to come to a close. And I told Neil, I mean, some of them, like some of our tomato plants are getting a little scraggly, but they're still producing. And our okra is still producing like crazy. And I'm not even doing anything with it. I'm just kind of ready to pretty much pull everything up but the watermelon and the butternut squash.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. We pulled in our first sugar baby watermelons, our first butternut squash. It's our first time growing either one of those. And I think I already mentioned on here that wasn't even supposed to be butternut squash because what I bought was supposed to be spaghetti squash.
Surprise.
But I'm enjoying it and I've been roasting it and making baby food out of it. So that's been good. What else did I want to share? Oh, I have something kind of cool to share, but I'm gonna let you talk for a while.
You don't want to outcool me?
Right.
Oh, excuse me. We have staff retreat this weekend. I know you know what I'm talking about. Shirley. Okay, let's take a moment. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I miss those. Those were so great.
Yeah,
they were so inspiring.
I remember you telling me that before we even came here and how encouraging it was. And I mean, I believed you, but I just didn't know exactly what to expect. And then the first one, it's where all of the extension directors, not all of them, anyone that can comes. So I know that the Ballards are coming, and he represents the school in Cameroon. Wes will be there for Cambodia. Someone will be there, I'm sure, from some of the African schools. Of course, Keith will be there with the overall report. But I think there's 60 some odd schools now. So we won't have nearly that many people come and report. But they just come and give a brief report about how the year went. And then at the very end, Denny gives a State of the Union kind of address about the school in Denver. And it's fun because it's like one of those things you only see certain people once a year, but it just really is encouraging to see the good work that's going on around the world. And like Keith says, if you think that the church is not growing, you must be American, because it is growing in other areas of the world. Maybe not as much here, but anyway, I know you used to do this and it got passed to me when you left. So thanks a lot. But now I get to do the games. Yes.
It's so
So
fun.
it is fun, but finding something that everybody wants to do and doesn't roll their eyes or doesn't hate or isn't embarrassed about.
Yeah.
So the first few years we did minute to win it games, and those were fun. But the last couple of years we've done Family Feud, and that's fun too. But I thought I'm going to do something different. So this year we're going to do the Saran Wrap game. And
What's
I
that?
know you and I have talked about this.
Is that the one with all the goodies?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And if you're watching, here's one of them. I made two.
Oh, wow.
You can see the Werthers in there.
Fun.
It is fun. We do this every year at Christmas with our family. And it's all it is. Well, I say all it is. I went to Dollar Tree and bought a bunch of silly things. I got some good things like a Sonic gift card and a Starbucks gift card. And there's a bunch of good candy and things in there. But there's some silly things like fingernail clippers and breath strips, just silly. But so the object is to unwrap it. So we stand in a circle. I did two of them because I figured if there was 40 people, it would take forever for it to make its way around the circle again. So we'll break into two groups. And so while the first person is trying to get the plastic unwrapped, and I've smashed it down and I got the really good sticky plastic. And even just getting it started is difficult, finding the beginning. So while the first person is trying to get it unwrapped, the second person is throwing dice and trying to get doubles. So as soon as that person gets doubles, the person that's holding it, trying to unwrap, has to pass it to that person. And then the next person immediately starts trying to toss the dice and get doubles. So anything that falls out while you're unwrapping, you get to keep it. But even if you are right there and almost get whatever's there and that person rolls doubles, then you have to pass it over. And it's hilarious when we do it at Christmas with the kids because Jordan and Alyssa in particular are very competitive. And so Jordan's just ripping, you can't tear the plastic. You have to unroll it. I need to remember to tell them that tonight. You can't just rip it open. But anyway, we'll see. I'm hoping it won't be too cheesy and will be fun and that people will enjoy participating. So that has landed on me. And so hopefully we'll enjoy it.
Did I tell you? So Cheryl Turner was the first person, excuse me, that
me too.
What number is that? Cheryl Turner is the first person that I ever heard talk about that game. And she showed me a video that she took of her grown kids and their spouses playing the game. And I was laughing.
Yeah.
Watching them. And of course I said, I have got to do this. And so it ended up being our first Christmas here in Bowling Green. And we had the kids over. I put so much time into it, finding all these things. I've been collecting it for weeks, all these things. I had this humongous ball and I had my camera ready to record so I could, send it to Cheryl afterwards and thank her. Dale, I think it was Dale, was the first one to get it. And when he started it, the whole thing just unrolled.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that you had
to twist it and cut it,
break it up in pieces so it starts in different, and it was over before it started. And so it was the biggest flop. It was the biggest dud. And then so everything just fell out and nobody else got to play. And I was like, well, that didn't go the way I saw it playing out in my mind.
Yeah. You told me about that. So when I did it the first time, I twisted, I'd wrap it and then I'd cut it and then I'd turn it a different way and then I'd wrap it again with something. And so hopefully it will last more than 5 minutes. I mean, last Christmas, I have a video and it was probably 20 minutes or so before they got everything out of it.
Yeah, that's just about perfect.
Yeah.
Do you make them wear oven mitts?
No, I didn't do that. I don't think that's possible to unwrap plastic wrap. This is the stuff that comes from Costco and it's really very effective, sticky. I mean, it's the good stuff.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'll send pictures.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. Okay. So what's your cool thing?
Tell everybody there that we said hi and we love them and still pray for the work and all the good worldwide work that they're doing.
I will.
Okay. You're not going to believe this.
Uh-oh.
So we've been watching Alone, that series you told us about. We kind of hop around from series to series because some of them we like and some of them we don't.
Make sure you don't spit that cough drop out.
I might, but I'm going to try. Can you hear me? Can you hear it when I'm talking?
I can see it. I can't hear it.
I don't care if you can see it. So anyway, we started watching season 6. And the first guy they were showing, Neil, after a while, he said, doesn't he look just like that guy we knew And he starts talking about this caretaker at Camp Idlewild in Virginia. And I'm going, I don't know. And a few minutes later, he said, "Man, it looks just like him." And he said, "And wasn't his name Tim?" Because you know how they just put the contestant's first name on there. They don't. And he goes, "Wasn't that guy's name Tim too?" And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe. I don't know." And anyway, the more he watched him, he said, that has got to be. And he said, "Do you remember that guy?" And he starts telling me about he was the caretaker for the camp. And he said, "Remember he had to be careful about his back because he had back surgery." And I had helped this guy's wife in the kitchen at camp one year. And
Googling this guy now.
right after Neil said, he had hurt his back and had back surgery. The guy on the show says, "I have to be careful because back in whatever year I had back surgery." And so Neil and I are looking at each other and we're going, "What?" And he looks it up. He goes, "Backus, Tim
Tim
Backus.
Backus.
This is the guy we knew."
Wow.
So we know he was the first contestant that they showed on season 6, also the first one to go home.
Oh,
by the
that's
way.
why I don't remember him.
And so anyway, we actually know him. And I thought, how wild is that you just told us about this show. We started watching it. We picked a random season and we absolutely know the first contestant.
That is hilarious.
And I kind of hate to share it because he was using bad language on the show. So something's happened in a few years since we've seen him, but you know.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Anyway, yeah, how about
that's your claim to fame today.
What are the
odds?
You
know Tim Backus from season 6 of Alone. Yeah. That's well, then, cool.
So Neil's looking it up, and apparently he got some unfavorable comments because people thought they were glad he went home because they thought he was arrogant.
Oh. So. Well. Would you do that show?
No.
Yeah. I would. I as soon as I heard the first, I'd be out of there. Or I'd be crying because I wouldn't be able to be out of there fast enough.
How are you worried about that? Was that somebody's stomach growling or a wild animal? Okay.
Both.
I would be out of there because of the stomach growling. Okay, so we were watching an episode the other night. It kind of made me mad because somebody shot a moose, which is, I mean, they shoot big game on there. We've seen some pretty remarkable kills. But he didn't want to go up and put it out of its misery because he was afraid it would take off running. And it took over 3 hours for this moose to die. And he just laid there and you can hear him crying.
I don't remember that.
And so I was like, not cool. And he's trying to justify himself by saying, but if I go over there and try and put him out of his misery, I might lose him. He'll take off running. And trying to say I'm really hungry and I need this meat. And to me, I thought, nope, because you're just on TV. Literally, you're not really starving.
Right.
I mean, they are hungry, but they don't have to be.
Yeah, they can choose
to leave. But he cared more about staying on that show and his chance to win all that money than he did about putting that poor creature that he shot out of its misery. Yeah. And I'm not like some kind of animal activist or anything like that. I just thought that was cruel.
Yeah.
And it was making me feel like, bleh.
I don't remember that. Was that season 6?
Yep.
Well, I don't remember what season it is, but one of them, the guy that kills a musk ox with a knife. I
saw that.
That's crazy. Yeah. And then he butchered it and carried it piece by piece back to his camp like a mile away.
And ate every single piece of that thing. I mean, hoofs at the end, hoofs.
I don't remember that. I think I blocked that from my memory.
He charred it in the campfire.
Oh.
And then scraped it and ate it.
Is he the guy that won? Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah. That would probably be one of the first things that would knock me off of some show like that, is having to eat something that I would be grossed out by. And
yeah. They keep showing them eating or drinking undesirable parts of these animals. And I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
That's a big no.
And I always think there's a perfect person to go do that show. It'd have to be somebody that's okay being by themselves, first of all. Somebody that's pretty brave and knows hunting and knows what you can eat and what you can't eat, although some of them don't know that. But you also have to be able to talk to the camera. And most people, I think, that are okay being alone are not big talkers. So anyway, that's just one of those, I find that show fascinating.
It is. It is definitely fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We've been
Well,
chit-chatting for 30 whole minutes. You have something else, or we need to?
I have one more thing I just thought
Okay.
of. I wanted to say, I want to give a shout out to my husband
Okay.
because this cow dream has been mine
Mhm.
for years. And he's been like, I don't think so. Not on board at all. And really had to be persuaded. But I have to say, to his credit, once we made that decision, he's been all in.
Yeah.
And been putting aside the money to make it happen. And now that we started the milking process, I didn't know he was going to go out there and do that with me.
Mm.
And he has been right there with me, learning it with me, going through all the work with me, cleaning up with me. I mean, and acting very pleased and excited about it. This is my dream. And I just kind of feel like I want to acknowledge that he didn't just let me do it. He's joining, excuse me, he's joining in with me in this, which makes it, of course, for me, that much more special and that much more meaningful. So I just have to say in front of everybody how much I appreciate that. And I know he listens in. So I want to give that little shout out.
Yeah, he's a good guy. That is so true. When you enjoy something, you want to enjoy it with the one that you love. And so he's made that possible for you. That's sweet.
Yes.
Good for him.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
How long have we been talking? So I'll know.
31.30, 31 and a half minutes of chit chat. Sorry, people that don't like the chit chat, but we've had a lot of people that tell us they do like it. So
yeah,
I think
I will try to remember to say, if you want to skip all that, start here.
Yeah, 31.
Sometimes I remember and sometimes I don't. Just because we don't want people to think that we think you care what we're talking about.
Yeah. We have fun with it though. So
yeah, we hope you do.
We might not be everybody's cup of tea, but that's okay. That's okay. They've got their other cups of tea they can imbibe from. Okay, what we're going to talk about today.
No imbibing. This is a Christian podcast.
You can imbibe good things, not just bad things.
Really? I thought that was an alcoholic word.
Maybe it is. I apologize if it is. I don't know.
You're probably right.
Well, you're making me miserable.
Let's talk about 10 ways.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that, Carla.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about that. Today, our topic is how to be perfectly miserable. And this comes from an article that my dad wrote. I don't know how many years ago. It's been at least 20, maybe even 30 years ago. And my dad, his name is Carl Garner. He was a great writer. That was one of his strengths to me, and just very practical things.
And so are you. So
well, I think that he rubbed off on me as far as just trying to be practical, but he always had the best titles too. I can think of several. There's one that he called Red Dye Number 2, and it was about alcohol and how dangerous it was, but how people don't, they drink it anyway. But then there's this red dye number 2 that goes into red M&Ms and other things like that. There was this big uproar about banning this substance, and it never killed anyone on a highway or anyway. Dad was a good writer, and this article that he wrote, it was called How to Be Perfectly Miserable. And the way he started it off, he said, there are some decisions in life that we make below the conscious level. And he said that they're gradual and they're not intentional. And so he's talking about how we can not really know that we're deciding to be this way, but we're deciding to be miserable or deciding to be happy. And so if we're not intentional about it, then we're just going to fall into doing something that really is not a good thing. And, I think I can think of several people on the opposite end, and you probably can too, just off the top of your head, that are cheerful. They have problems, they have issues going on, but they're cheerful and they're happy and they're content, and they want to know about you. They have a sweet disposition. I think, you talk about Neil, he's one of those, and John is one of those. He's just positive and happy and cheerful. And there's been lots of times since he was in the hospital, and I was thinking about things that he went through there, and he just did it. And, it was things that were not pleasant, and it wasn't a big deal to him, because things that I would have hated doing. But I thought about his dad. Grady was like that. He was just one of those people that, he just never met a stranger, and he always had a joke to make, and he would always try to make you smile and laugh. And he was that way. I think about Hannah Lee. She's got a pretty serious illness, disease, and yet she's always cheerful and positive and encouraging. There's a woman named Ruth Locke. I may have even mentioned her before, but she was one of the sweetest older women that I have ever known. She gave John $100 to buy a pair of shoes one time because she sat across the aisle from us. Did I tell you about this? She sat across the aisle from us, and when John would cross his legs, she could see the bottom of his shoes. And this was way, way early in our marriage. I think Jordan was maybe 4 and Jake was 2. And she saw holes in the bottom of his shoes. And she gave him a check and said, because the feet of a preacher are beautiful, but we don't really want to see yours. But stuff like that. Towards the end of her life, when she was really gravely ill, I remember we would ask her how she was, and she would laugh and she'd say, I'm just not going to get out of this world alive. Stuff like that. I think of people like that, and the ways I thought of adjectives that I would describe people that, they're selfless. They enjoy laughing. They deflect attention away from themselves. They smile. They speak with positivity. They are encouraging. They want to know about you. Those are the people that I want to be like, and they are not miserable. But then we won't mention names because that would not be nice. We do know people that they may have problems, but they may or may not, and maybe their problems are not so serious because everyone has them. But nothing is just ever quite right. And they want to talk about their troubles all the time. They're grumpy, just kind of the sour disposition, criticizing, they're worrying about things. And I was trying to think of some adjectives that would maybe describe them. And I thought of touchy. There was all these ending in Y words. They're touchy. They're frowny. I know that's not a word, but they're frowny. They're moody. They complain. It's somebody that you kind of have to approach tentatively. You're like, you kind of look to see what kind of look they have on their face before you want to go visit with them. You have to handle them carefully. They use a lot of personal pronouns, I, me, and mine, and they talk about themselves. They don't have a lot to say that's nice about others. They're not much of a listener or a comforter, and they don't really want comfort. I don't think they don't want advice. They just want to be miserable, it seems like. And Dad, one of the things that he said in the article was, as a service to those who have made the latter decision, the decision to be miserable, we offer the following guidelines for being miserable and enjoying it. My dad had a very dry sense of humor, and he employed sarcasm sometimes. But anyway, this is what we're going to talk about today. And it's kind of a little bit of tongue in cheek and a little bit of humor to kind of maybe make it a little bit lighter than it, because we don't want to browbeat anybody. But we want to think about not being this way, because Christians have so much to be thankful for and so much to be joyous about. And why would we want to walk around, as I've heard it said, looking like we were weaned on a sour pickle? So we've each got 5 different things, and we'll try not to drag this out too long, but we're going to talk about some different ways that you can be miserable. So I'm going to toss it to you and let you go first and tell us what your first one is.
Yeah, and I also want to say these are your dad's things, and I love the fact when you first told me about this, I got so excited. I think this is a great topic, and I've been looking forward to it, and I loved the article that he wrote. So these 10 things on how to be perfectly miserable are all his, and we're just each going to discuss them a little bit together. And I love the fact that I mentioned this ahead of time before we hit record, that your dad is still teaching through this. That's the beauty of the written word, is the influence and the impact continues on even after that individual has gone to be with the Lord. And that's exactly what's happening here. So much appreciation to your father for this. But okay, how to be perfectly miserable. Number 1, think and talk about yourself as much as possible. And the good thing is, it's not hard to do.
No.
It's really natural. It comes natural to most of us to think about ourselves and be self-absorbed and want to talk about what's going on in our lives all the time, and not at all be interested in what the other person might have to say, or even giving them a chance to talk about themselves, or even intentionally thinking about what might be going on in their life. So think and talk about yourself as much as possible. Your dad said in the article, in every conversation, use I, me, and my as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So it reminded me, there's a quote that I share every so often that says, I is the smallest letter in the alphabet. Don't make it your largest word in your vocabulary.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe it could be a little test, when you're talking with somebody, think about how often you do use those personal pronouns. Not that you would want to start speaking awkwardly by trying to avoid those personal pronouns, but just to make you more aware of how much of this has actually been about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we do that unintentionally anyway. I mean, have you ever
Sure.
walked away from a conversation that you really
Yeah.
enjoyed, but as you're walking away, you thought, oh, we actually talked about me the whole time, or they were
Mm-hmm.
asking all these questions about me and I never really got around to asking about them. And,
Yeah.
maybe it makes you feel a little bad when it happens that way. But sometimes, we can get so caught up in our own personal lives that even when significant, important things are going on in the lives of people around us, we're still focused on ourselves and still talking about that. So
Mm-hmm.
Philippians 2:4 reminds us to take an interest in others, not just in ourselves. And 1 Corinthians 13:5 reminds us that love is not self-seeking.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a lot of these, it kind of correlates to 1 Corinthians 13 and seems to be the exact opposite. So right out of the gate, we're going to see when God lays out, here's how you need to have your relationships and here's how you need to live. Once again, it's because he knows what's best for us. But if you
Mm-hmm.
want to be miserable, go ahead and do it your way and go ahead and talk about yourself and think about yourself and be self-absorbed.
Yeah. I was thinking that's kind of, it doesn't seem like something that would make us miserable, because when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about ourselves, when you're giving advice about how to make conversation with someone, the first thing you do is ask them about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because I've heard it said everyone likes to talk about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds really selfish, but I mean, I know more about myself than I do anything else. Um, but why would it make us miserable? But it's because it makes us self-centered and we're not thinking about others. And God tells us when we do for others and serve others and listen to others, then that's what's going to bring joy. But it feels good in the moment to talk about ourselves. We like it,
Mm-hmm.
but in the long run. And I was thinking too, I have a friend and I love her. And whoever's listening to this, it's not you, but she'll ask a question about my family or whatever. She's trying to show interest. And almost before I have the words out of my mouth, she'll say, oh, my mom does that too. Or, oh, I have this too. And then she'll go on and talk for the next 10 minutes about whatever it is she asked me about. And I'm almost like, I can't get the
Mm-hmm.
words out. And I have to laugh because I know what it is on her part is that she's just trying to relate. She's just trying
Mm-hmm.
to make conversation. And I understand that about her. She's not a miserable person, but it makes me conscious of,
Mm-hmm.
how do I respond when someone's talking? I think I do this to you sometimes. I'm so like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. And then I try to explain it and you're still in the middle of your sentence. What is that saying? Oh, did the beginning of my sentence interrupt the middle of yours? But yeah, talking about ourselves, using
Well, and
personal
what you
pronouns.
just said about it might feel good in the moment, but in the end, it's not going to bring you joy. It's not fulfilling. Really, that same thing, just keep that in mind for all these things that we're going to
Right.
mention, because that same thing is true. And the moment, what we'll share probably will feel good and
Mm-hmm.
gratifying in a way, and but ultimately will lead to misery.
Yeah. So how do we
Mm-hmm.
stop doing that?
What, talking about ourselves?
Mm-hmm. If
Well,
somebody says, how are you doing? It doesn't
yeah.
matter how I'm doing. How are you doing today?
No, how are you doing?
No, how are you? But
Thank
I,
you. No, thank you.
no, but for real, like, how do
You look
you,
good. No, you look good.
you look better.
You look the best.
Oh, can't beat that one.
Haha.
Anyway, so I just
No.
think, how do you not do that? How do you, I think you approach a conversation knowing, maybe having some things prepared that you're going to ask them about. Remember Christy Huntsman saying that
Mm-hmm.
she kept a little note on the top of her Bible and that she would jot some things down ahead of time about this person that she already knew about them and what she was going to ask, to engage them in conversation. So
Yeah,
being aware of it is,
intention for sure. But I also think it goes back to that heart posture, have you been feeding that self-centeredness, and have you been allowing yourself to become self-absorbed in all of life? Because when you talk to somebody, that's what's going to come out. But if you have a heart posture that is focused on others and their lives and their needs and what would bring them joy, then that'll naturally come out when you're with other people. And you can see that just in the people that you meet.
Yeah.
Their overall tendency when you have a conversation with somebody at church or whatever, their overall tendency will typically be one way or the other. And so I think it's something we can pray about if we struggle with that, and then think about, well, overall, how do I live my life in view of others, and they're in your own home? What does that look like in your marriage and in your own home? Do you live a life where the focus is on somebody else or on yourself?
Yeah, selfishness. All of these, I think all of these, we're kind of laughing about them, and they are just kind of silly, the way it's worded. But in all seriousness, we want to remind everyone, just this is something to do some self-introspection, some self-reflection, and to ask ourselves and take a long, hard look and see, is this something that I may be guilty of? I think we probably all have some of all of them in us, but having them pointed out in this way has been helpful to me, just to look at them. So that's a good one.
There were a few. I mean, most of them I kind of laugh a little bit, but also on the inside I'm going, ooh.
Yeah, exactly. Ouch, my toes.
Yeah, ow. Okay. So you have number 2.
Okay. And my first one is think the worst about everyone. And so I was trying to think of some different examples, and one of them that came to mind pretty quickly was, they intentionally didn't invite me. That's something that maybe I have a problem with. If I'm left out of something, and I'm going to think, well, they just didn't want to be with me. They didn't want to invite me. But there's other things. Think the worst about everyone. Believe every rumor that you hear, and assume, well, I knew all along that was true. Or expect the worst treatment from others, and you'll get it. Reach the worst conclusion from your judgments, and then tell everyone your conclusions, and make sure that you exaggerate everything. That gets all over me sometimes when I hear someone repeating something to someone else that I heard, and I know it didn't sound like that, but yet they're twisting it and exaggerating it and making it sound worse than it really was.
Changing the voice inflection a little bit. Yeah.
And then they make themselves, but I only said, well, would you mind not doing that to me? And I'm like, that's not at all how that happened. But I know that I've done that before. We all, I think, naturally try to make ourselves look better than we are. And, but this is just something to think about. Do I think the worst about everyone, or do I try to think the best of them? And it seems like, I don't know what you think about this, but it seems like people who are like this tend to congregate together, and because they want to be miserable together. I guess misery loves company. But looking at Mark chapter 2, verses 14 through 28, this is where Jesus goes home for a meal with Matthew, and there's other tax collectors and sinners there. And the Bible says that they were following him. So, the Bible's talking about these people that were tax collectors and sinners were following Jesus. But yet, the Pharisees and the scribes of the Pharisees is what it said. And I had never noticed that before. Sorry, I have something in my eye. But they were asking Jesus these questions. Why are they eating with bad people? And why aren't you fasting in another situation? And then when they were going through the fields getting grain, why are they not obeying our religious laws? All of these why questions. And they were looking for things to criticize and expecting the worst from other people. And I think that just becomes a mindset and a habit, and something that we have to really get control of our thoughts. And how do we do that? How do we get control of our thoughts? And thinking about 2 Corinthians 10 and how we're in a spiritual battle, And the weapons of our warfare are not physical weapons, but they're spiritual weapons. And so we can get control of our thoughts and our minds. Sorry, excuse me. So instead of thinking the worst, do our best to think the best of someone. And there was a funny story, and you know this woman, and she told it on herself. I won't say her name because she would be embarrassed, but she went, I even hesitated to tell this, but I think it fits here. She went to buy one of those teeny tiny little bottles of whatever it is that you put in tres leches cake, or if you put the alcohol in there, is it rum or something like that? And she was determined she was not going to buy a big bottle. She just wanted the little tiny bottle. And so she went looking for one, and she ended up having to go to 4, I think, different liquor stores. Me personally, I just wouldn't do it because of this whole topic, because I'm not going to buy it. I'll use something else, an extract or whatever. But she thought, what if someone sees me and thinks that I'm an alcoholic? And it was just this little old lady, and she explained to the man at the counter, I just need a little tiny bottle. I don't drink. I'm just putting this in a cake, and the alcohol's going to burn off. And anyway, it was hilarious to think of her doing that. But what if someone saw her going in there? What would they think? Would they think, oh, there I can't believe she's going in there. And again, I'm not encouraging anyone to go in a liquor store. Please don't take that from this. But I hope that, and I know if I saw her opening that door going in there, I would have thought, what in the world? She must have some kind of an illness, or she's trying to clean a cutout, or, who knows what, but I would not think that she's going in there to get drunk. So things like that. And there was another situation I thought of that Micah one time got called out in a youth event, and he had leaned over to ask someone for a piece of paper so he could take notes. And the speaker called him out and by name in front of everybody and said, Micah, do you have something important you need to share with the rest of the group, or something like that?
No.
And I remember, of course, it hurt more because it was my child, but seeing the look on his face of hurt, like I'm trying to take notes and I needed a piece of paper. And I could tell that this speaker felt bad about it, but kind of the damage was already done. He just thought the worst immediately. So anyway, that's thinking the worst of people is just a bad habit, and we really don't have to do it that way.
And I was thinking when I saw that one on the list, that's a big one. And definitely going through life that way, not giving people the benefit of the doubt, but assuming the worst about them, truly is a way to be miserable. Yeah. I mean, think about, you can tell when somebody has that kind of approach to life based on how they talk about church leaders.
Yeah.
Or any class that they've been in, and any decision that's been made obviously was poorly made without a lot of thought by people who don't know the whole situation or don't, and you can just tell that instead of assuming that a lot of thought and prayer has gone into this, and that they know some things that maybe you don't know, and that they have the wisdom and experience to know to do it, instead of just naturally assuming all of that. It seems like sometimes some people can enter into every scenario assuming the worst about all the players involved. And you have to wonder, is there anybody that you just look up to?
Yeah.
Is there anybody in life that you respect and think maybe they're doing a pretty okay job?
Yeah, you're right. It is a miserable way to live. And I feel sorry for them. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to live that way. I think you can bounce your thoughts, start being intentional about it, and say to yourself, well, maybe they were doing this, or I know them well enough to know that that's not what was going on, what I thought I saw, or just training our minds. It really is a matter of training our minds and making a new habit and fighting that tendency that we have to think the worst of people.
Well, and here's the thought. You could just mind your own business. I mean, you don't really have to put your stamp of approval on everything that everybody does in their life.
Mm-hmm.
it's just sometimes it's just none of our business, and we don't have to have an opinion one way or another. We can just
Really? I
really.
don't have to have an opinion about everything.
Mm.
Wow, that's like a load off my mind.
You're welcome.
Thanks. All right, moving
If you want
along.
to be miserable.
Yeah.
The next one is measure your happiness by the amount of money or possessions you own. And I was trying to think about, you said he wrote this about 20 years ago.
At least, yeah.
So before the advent of social media and
Mm-hmm.
influencers, and you know how much easier it is now to compare and play the comparison game and see things presented in such a beautiful or novel way that you think that if I want this kind of life, I have to have this, and it needs to look like that. And I want to model it or pattern after this, or, how much easier is it now? Whatever our interest is, whether it's home design or even, homesteading or
Mm-hmm.
farming or owning a cat, anything really that we have an interest in, you can find somebody out there that's holding that up as their platform or whatever. And then they're telling you everything that you need to go along with it. And I was just thinking, it's always been an issue because it's talked about in the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
contentment, and if, with the very basic things, shelter and clothing, and learning to not always feel this covetous or not feed this covetous nature, to feel like you still need more to be happy, you still need more to be satisfied, and if only I could do this or have this, then I would have finally arrived and be happy. But
Mm-hmm.
um, it just seems like even now, surely it's got to be a little bit easier to be miserable always. You think, oh, now I've got this, and this. Well, then you'll see something else
Yeah.
or something better. Or, now there's this new thing or this latest version, or
Mm-hmm.
it's always right there in our space if we
Yeah.
let it be. And again, I was thinking this is just another one of those where it takes real intention to practice contentment. You're not just going to be naturally content. I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think you have to be, and if that's something that you do struggle with, prayerfully consider being more intentional about it. And certainly if you're pursuing wanting more and needing more, that materialistic, I haven't arrived yet, but I want to kind of approach to life, you just will be miserable no matter how shiny it is or how good that account looks. I
Yeah.
heard somebody say the other day, when somebody has something flashy and beautiful and you're like, wow, you don't know what they had to do to get it, and you don't know what they're having to do to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so true.
Yeah.
Luke 12:15 says, take care and be on your guard against covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions.
Mm. I see this in myself. Not money. I know I've said before that money just makes me feel icky. It causes so many problems, but there are things, the newest thing, and it usually is something in the kitchen, I don't know, a different kind of pot. I'm just trying to think of something
Mm-hmm.
off the top of my head that, oh, that does something different than what I already have does. And I kind of like that. Or a purse. I have a thing for purses. I laugh with a friend and we call it OCPD, obsessive compulsive purse disorder, and not making light of anybody that really does have OCD. But um, it's just, I think that's a weakness that I have, and I have to fight it and remind myself that even if I get that next new thing, it's not going to be another 3 months before something else comes out that I want to replace it with, and I'm not satisfied with it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those weaknesses that I recognize in myself and try to do better. But yeah,
Well,
that's a
same
tough one.
here. We're getting on to the cow and the little baby steps toward homesteading that we're doing. But even then, there's so much information out there and so many cool things
Mm-hmm.
that you think you have to have, when true homesteaders made do with what they had. It probably didn't look beautiful.
Yeah.
And true farmers, true homesteaders, true independent, self sufficient settlers, or whatever you want to call them, they just used stuff that they had around and
Mm-hmm.
made it serve its purpose. And
Yeah.
they didn't have Amazon to say, oh, well, we should probably get this and order, and this week we'll go here. And now let's make another run to Tractor Supply. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure they know our names in there now. So
Yeah.
I can see that. And in your mind, you're going, this isn't materialistic or flashy, but it
Yeah.
is another way to spend a lot of money
It's just another thing.
that you don't necessarily have to do. So,
Yeah. And I rationalize. I'm like, oh, well, I'll sell this
yeah.
one and I'll. So basically I was just kind of renting it for this amount of time. Anyway, yeah, that's one that steps on my toes. So thanks.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank your dad. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. My next one is demand agreement with your opinions. And
oh, that one makes my jaw feel cringy.
we even talked, I think, in the last episode about we need to at some point talk about how do you have an opinion about something, even a strong opinion, and yet don't bind that on someone else. Because that's tough. Because when you have something that you really believe is right for you or your family, how do you not look at some other family and think, why are they not doing what we're doing? Because we made the best choice. That's a tough one. But as far as this one goes, you've got to make sure everyone knows what you think about things. Make sure everyone knows it's not an opinion. It's just the right word, right? And then we expect them to fall in line with the things that we think. And then we have to be indignant when someone else has a different opinion. We have to let others know that they're wrong in their opinions. And then the best thing to do about this is to write about it on Facebook in a very passive aggressive way. So, just make sure that you kind of say something that lets people know what you're talking about, but make them question who it is. And, what exactly do you mean by that?
I've never seen anybody do that.
You never seen that? I haven't seen it today, but I'm sure I've seen it in the days preceding today. And then be unfriendly to whoever it is that disagrees with you from now on. But for real, how do we make that determination that what we believe about something is not just our opinion as opposed to gospel truth? And man, we have a hard time with this one. And the scripture that Dad brought up was the one about Diotrephes in 3 John verses 9-11. And it talks about how he wanted to have the preeminence. He wanted to be first. And that whole context is talking about the church there. And Paul was encouraging them to be hospitable. And what that meant was to have them in their homes. And this man Diotrephes was saying, no, don't do that. And if you do that, then you are not part of my fellowship. And, we can argue about the whole, what if it's a false teacher? And that's in the context of the chapter or the book above that, I believe. And Paul says, you don't allow false teaching into your home or the house church or whatever it was in 2 John. But we just have a really hard time deciding what's truth and what's opinion. But even if it's just political things or personal opinions about what we eat, what's the best way to eat, vegan, vegetarian, keto, low carb, just whatever, we disagree about things and we don't like it when someone disagrees with us. And then we take it personally. So that's a way to be miserable, is to demand that everyone agrees with me. Well, that's why we're such good friends, because you agree with everything that I say.
Oh, I agree.
Right now.
To me, it's one of those things at some point you kind of have to go, why would I assume that people even want to know what my opinion is on any given matter? And it's pretty presumptuous to think people do want your opinion unless they've asked for it. And I've seen, you've probably heard this too, but you should talk less and listen more, because not only will you have more friends, but you might actually learn something.
That's great. Yeah. Oh, that's a tough one. And I think, like you said, I think I have less problem with that, because I also think, why would anybody really want to know what I think about something? But it's just easy to do it, especially with social media. It's easy to throw out what you think about something. And then when someone posts a comment that doesn't exactly agree with you, we're like, oh, how in the world can they not see what I'm trying to say? And then we have to write back and try to explain further, and then get mad again when they don't exactly agree with it. So
defend yourself or give your rationale. And
yeah, so I think we just need to chill and stop thinking that everyone has to think just like me. And that was kind of a realization that I had not too terribly long ago, is that not everyone thinks like me. The sooner we learn that, the better.
Yeah, and in some of these, a little bit of common sense comes into play, because sometimes there is an occasion for you to share your opinion, and it's a good thing to do. And or there is an occasion to question something, or but it's just not developing that overall demeanor. And for example, with having this cow, I've already heard comments about raw milk. People have opinions about that, and so do I. And for me, it's not, I've done a lot of research on it, and I'm just not going to stand up on my little soapbox or platform and say, but here's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's just not worth it to me. I'm not going to spend a time on that. But if it was something that had to do with eternity or defending Christ, and I understand people can take that
yeah,
to an extreme also, but then it does matter.
Right.
But you're talking, or your dad is talking about just developing that kind of personality that always has to get their own opinions heard and trying to convince everybody to agree with you. That sounds miserable.
Yeah. Well, and to me, it kind of ties in a little bit about thinking the worst about people. When, if they don't agree with you, then we think, well, they're just dumb, or they're liberal, or they're whatever, so it's just like you said, common sense to listen to people and allow people to say what they need to say. And if you have a relationship with someone, it makes it a little bit easier to say, well, this is what I think. And for what it's worth, this is what I think. We can preface things by saying, it's just my opinion, but this is how we do things. We can say it in a way that doesn't come across as just being, I'm going to cram this down your throat. So yeah, common sense. Good point. All right. What's your next one?
Be suspicious and jealous of everyone. If you want to be absolutely miserable, judge their motives for service and all the good works that they're sharing with others. Be envious of them when they experience success, or they are having happiness in their own lives. Don't ever trust anyone, because if they've made a mistake or messed up before, they'll probably do it again. Be jealous of relationships that others enjoy, that you feel like you don't have in your own life. And why don't you? So I thought that was really good one too, because surely that hits all of us at some point. And it's not, when we see it in somebody else, it is so not attractive. And nobody wants to be like that person or even be around that person. But at least for myself, I can see myself falling into that. And I have seen myself fall into that in various times and in situations. Being suspicious, and I don't like it at all when I see it in somebody else. And I might not verbalize it, but I might think it.
Yeah. Fight it.
And
have to fight it.
Yeah. And the jealousy, I might not verbalize it, but I might feel it in my heart. And even in the moment, recognize it for the pettiness that it is, but it's there. And I can feel it wanting to kind of, be nurtured and take root, and it wouldn't take much for me to want to grumble about it or talk about it or whatever. So I was thinking about this kind of sad, miserable existence of always judging others and being suspicious of others, and unfortunately that even crosses the line into Christianity, and people judging other Christians and assuming things about them that just aren't true, and wanting to write them up or whatever, but we won't go down that road. But where does that come from? And that's the heart check again. Is it personal insecurity? I think a lot of times it is.
Yeah.
Or a previous hurt that we haven't handled in the right way. I'm not discounting the fact that a hurt has happened, but obviously it was not handled in the right way. on our part. Because 1 Corinthians 13:7 says that love always trusts and love always hopes. And Romans 12:15, we're to rejoice with those who rejoice, and we're to treat others the way we want to be treated. This would include trusting that their motives are pure. We want people to give us that same respect, and we should do the same for them. And that one was Matthew 7, verse 12.
Being suspicious and jealous, especially the jealous part. It's hard not to, when you really want to be around someone, or you like someone, or you want to be couples friends with someone else. It's hard not to be envious of that, because it's something good, and you wonder, why don't we have that? And so maybe we can take this and think, what is it that I don't have? And maybe it's not something that we don't have, because sometimes you just don't click with people, and you just can't force a friendship. You can be friends with everyone, but as far as having that close friendship, sometimes you just can't force that. But that is something that is difficult to fight. And I guess of all of them, this one sort of makes me feel sorry for the person that feels jealous of everyone, because like you said, I think a lot of it has to do with insecurity. But it's just if it comes out in the way where you where it just looks like you're pouting, or you're just have a sour face or whatever, rather than thinking to yourself, maybe there's something that I need to do differently, or maybe I just have another friend, maybe I just need to go focus my attention elsewhere and make a different friend. But that's a tough one.
Well, and with jealousy, the only way out of it is to let go of it. You can't ever, especially when it comes to seeing other friendships that you want to be a part of and you feel like you're missing out, you've been left out. If you, when you play it out in your mind, if you do say something to that person or that group, how is that going to turn out?
Yeah.
Because then you'll just forever wonder, when they do include you or invite you the next time, it's only because I said something to them. And, and it doesn't really make them want to include you if you're that kind of person, so it's kind of this ironic situation of if you follow through with that. So the only reason to work it out is to let it go. Yeah. And maybe if we spend more time nurturing relationships and the relationships with the people in our lives, instead of being jealous of the ones that we see, we wouldn't be so miserable and feel so left out. And
yeah, because I know there's nothing attractive about it.
No. And some of it I fully recognize is brought about by my own awkwardness, and how far do I want to go with this one? Because sometimes, when you see somebody and you just instantly like them, we love everybody, but sometimes you just meet somebody and you're like, I want to be, how I felt about with you. I want to be your friend. I want you for a friend. And you might have a few good conversations with them. And then in my mind, I'm going, when I walk into the room, should I go sit by them? What if they don't really want me to? What if they're just being really nice and they don't feel the same way about me? That, that's awkward.
That's insecure, though.
That's insecurity, and that's awkwardness, and that's, but I could let that go to the point where it lodges in my heart as a problem. Yeah. And if I'm not willing to, especially if I'm not willing to overcome or assume the best about them, then it becomes a problem, and I'm self-absorbed and I'm jealous, and no, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Well, I know I understand. And I'm chasing a rabbit in my head. If I'm looking at you with this dull blank expressions, because I'm chasing a rabbit. Okay. Like, so how do you indicate to someone that you want to be their friend without making it
You write them a little note with a yes and no box that says, do you
check
like
yes
me?
Or no.
Can we be friends? Check yes or no.
I'll try that next time. Well, no, but like you and I, because I remember you saying, I want to be your friend, and thinking, I can't remember where we were.
You thought, you're weird.
No, I did not. I remember kind of thinking, why would she want to be my friend? Honestly. because, to me, you had all these other friends. And so I guess open up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Open up and say it.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is a little scary because there's that fear of rejection, or but how do you open up and say, yeah, I want to be friends with you. Can we get together? And what if, on the other hand, they don't really want to be friends? But
Yeah.
like you said, you just let go, and you can. I think most people, common sense, can tell
Mm-hmm.
when they
Yeah.
just don't have the time for another relationship or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Anyway, that's kind of chasing a rabbit that we probably shouldn't, as we tend to go along anyway. We probably
Oh,
shouldn't go down that
yes.
road.
Yes.
So that was your second one?
Yes, that was my third one.
Okay. All right. So my third one is never forget a good deed you have done.
I thought that was so good.
Yeah. And it's hard because we want recognition for the good that we do. And but what Dad said is don't be satisfied. Well, I wrote that. Don't be satisfied that God knows, because
Mhm.
that, I think this is something we grow to over time, that we want recognition. We want pats on the back. And I don't like attention. So it's easy for me to kind of don't say anything about it. But yet you want those private ones. Even if you're like me and
Mhm.
don't like attention, you want people to know. Maybe you don't want someone to announce it, but you do want people to know that you've done this, or you have
Mhm.
accomplished that, or whatever. But especially if it's something you've done for someone else, you just, you want that, pat on the back
Mhm.
for the good deed that you've done. And so if someone were to forget it, then that's insulting. But Dad said sulk and pout when others don't go on and on about your goodness. Which I can just hear him saying that, to sulk and pout when others don't go on and on about the good thing that you've done. Some of the things that I guess I find that I have problems with is if I wrote something about some, I wrote an article about this. I expect everyone to remember that I wrote something. And so if another person makes the same point, I'm like, but I said that. I said that 5 years ago in my little article that two people saw. So you should remember that I said it first, right?
You were the
Or,
originator.
yeah, that's my point. I said that. So, do I have this need to be praised, and I have my ego stroked? And, it's just I know it's a natural tendency, I think, that
Mhm.
humans have to be recognized. But Matthew 6, verses 1-4 is beware of practicing your righteousness before men to be noticed by them. Otherwise, you have no reward with your Father who's in heaven. And then he goes on to say, when you give to the poor, you don't blow your trumpet before you. And I've never known anyone to literally blow a trumpet before them, but people want you to know when they've given to
Mhm.
something or someone, whether it's, having your name printed on a brick that you're giving money for or whatever. And
Mhm.
I'm not objecting to that, because I understand that that's a fundraiser sometimes, you buy a brick and we'll put your name in this, whatever. But um he goes on in this passage, when you give to the poor, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing, so that your giving will be in secret, and then God will reward you. Well, he sees what's done in secret, and he's going to be the one to reward us. So to me, it this is one of the easier ones, just to learn to be satisfied and to be patient. And God, it's fun sometimes to see how he'll come back around and
Mhm.
reward you, or someone else will say, oh, I remember when you said this. Or there's just lots of different ways that God can reward us, even if we're not looking for a reward. um, but he will let someone else praise us. And
Mhm.
that it is gratifying when we know that we've done something that's good, but we're not the ones that are proclaiming it, that, oh, look what I did. Proverbs 27:2 says, let another praise you, not your own mouth, a stranger, and not your own lips. And then Proverbs 25:27, the first part I don't like, because it says it's good to not eat much honey. It is not good to eat much honey. But the second part of the verse, nor is it glory to search out one's own glory.
Mhm.
So be humble. and let other people praise you. But really at the root of it, don't need praise. You don't need to be praised. It's really not, it's not about me. This life is not about me. Doing good is not about me. Just let God handle that. Let him reward you. That's much better than having someone pat you on the back and praise you, because that's it. Like the Bible says, that's it. That's your reward.
Haven't we found creative ways to let it slip though?
Yeah.
It may not be this whole obvious, hey, I did this week and I did that and I went to see this person and I took a meal at it,
Oh,
we
when
may
I was
not
on the
be,
phone with so-and-so, when I
yes,
called to check on them.
exactly.
Yeah.
But we have found these real subtle, creative ways to let that, let them connect the dots and infer from our implication what we've done. It's like the humble brag kind of a thing. And that's exactly. I was thinking about an example of, not that this has happened to me.
Okay.
But if there's a program going on in your congregation and it's in the bulletin every week, who's responsible for it that week? Who's doing that good deed that week, and their name gets put in there. And then the week that you have it, for some reason, it was left out.
Yeah.
And you notice that and you think, well, nobody said anything. Nobody announced it when it was at my house. Nobody put it in the bulletin when we were the ones that did it.
Yeah.
And of course, it's petty. It's very human and it's petty, but we forget why we were doing it in the first place. And certainly seeing our name in print in the church bulletin is not why we do what we do. So.
No. And it's just best to let that go and let go and let God take care of that. So
good one. Very good one. All right. The next one, if you want to be absolutely miserable, be sensitive.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Be easily offended.
What? I can't believe you said that.
Be impossible to be comforted. There's a lot to uncover in this one.
Yeah.
So your dad used the phrase, make everyone walk on eggshells around you. And haven't you known people like that? I'm sure I've been that way at times, but I also know that I have known people like that you just have to be so careful, because they are so sensitive that they could turn right around and say to somebody else something that you said that you did not intend for it to come across that way, because you've heard them say that about other people.
Yeah.
They're always taking it personally. They're always taking it as an insult or a cut. They're always raising their eyebrows. What did you mean by that? And easily offended. So, your dad also used this phrase, look for insults in the comments of others, even when none are intended. That's bad. That is so bad. And it seems like sometimes I think about marriage problems, when the husband or wife is tired at the end of a long day and they say something, they did not mean anything by it, but the other person's like, what?
Yeah.
I was thinking about these types of scenarios, being too sensitive, being easily offended, everything is taken personally, a personal attack against you or your dear child.
Oh, that's the worst.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That if drama seems to follow you, at some point you need to recognize that the common denominator is you. If drama seems to follow you, if you always have a story to tell, like, you wouldn't believe what this person said to me, you wouldn't believe what this person did, maybe you're being too sensitive. Maybe you're the one that's being easily offended. I think I've said this on here before, but my sister and I have always been really close, and I mean throughout our entire childhood, and so close that I can remember our fights. They have been so few and far between that I can remember them. And we had one as adults after either, I can't remember, excuse me, oh dear.
Let me talk. I'll say something really loud while you cough.
Go ahead.
Go for it. Cough it out.
Thanks. We had an argument after either my grandpa or my grandma's funeral. I can't remember which one. But she made the comment, you're just too sensitive. And I was like, oh, and the fact that it really hurt my feelings that she said that probably means there was some truth to it. So, yeah. Which I thought was so ironic. I thought about it later and I was like, I can't believe she said that. And then I thought, well,
Oh,
the fact that it bothered me
yeah.
means that it was probably true.
Yeah. Don't you think that there are some, well, I mean, this is the whole topic we're talking about, but some people in particular just really seem to enjoy conflict.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking of the word relish. They
Yeah.
relish. If they don't
Yeah.
have something to, if they don't have some weekly drama to share with everybody in the foyer, then
Hmm.
it's been a dull week.
And I hate conflict. I
I do
hate
too.
drama. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is one of the things that I realize not everybody thinks like me.
Mm-hmm.
I go the other way and avoid all conflict, which is not good either. But yeah, I think there's just some people that they look for that in people's comments because they enjoy it. They enjoy
Mm-hmm.
being able to go tell someone, you wouldn't believe what so and so said to me, or I think they get some kind of temporary satisfaction, which is
Mm-hmm.
probably part of the point that it's temporary. And so you have to go looking for more, because if it's solved, then that's over. Then I got to find a new conflict. So
Mm-hmm.
that is a miserable way to be. Ugh.
It is, and it creates a lot of strife instead of harmony in the body. And going back to 1 Corinthians 13, verse 5 says, love is not easily angered, which means, thicken up your skin a little bit. Like they would always say to preachers, keep a tender heart and a tough hide. Don't
Mm-hmm.
be sensitive. Don't take things personally. Build up a thick enough hide to where you can give people grace and assume the best and not take things personally, but keep that tender heart,
Yeah.
and care for others and be careful about what you say to others. And then your dad had said, and the impossible to be comforted. I hadn't really thought about that before, but that was a good one. And that there's no lifting you out of your slump today. You've
Yeah.
you've decided that that's where you've landed and that's where you're going to stay. So, or your bad day or your recent discouragement. So I was thinking about people trying to say, well, maybe blah 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 blah. You always come back with it, yeah, but.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you just can't be comforted.
Maybe it's because they're afraid it'll stop. It's attention that they're getting, and they want
Mm,
that attention to continue. So that
yeah,
probably is a lot of that. A lot of the one that we're talking about now
yeah.
is the attention that comes from when we're in the middle of a drama, or uh, if we're being comforted. We like that feeling of being comforted, but
Mm-hmm.
it might go away if I am in fact comforted. So I've got to continue being uncomfortable, whatever it
Yeah, and
is.
so if someone says, "Are you okay? Are you better?" You don't want to say yes or I'm fine because
Mhm.
then you lose that attention. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about how we need to teach our kids to not be
Mm.
this way. And how do
Mm-hmm.
we do that? And I guess, first of all, is by not being that way ourselves, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously they're going to follow our example. But
Yes.
when our child is offended by someone or hurt by someone, do we, oh, I'm so sorry, let's go shopping, or I'm going to take you for ice cream to make you feel better, rather than saying, well, maybe they meant something different. And I know we've talked about this before, but just the friend, it was actually a fellow school board member whose wife, anytime there was a conflict between their son and someone at school, they would always invite them home for a play date, because
Mm-hmm.
you just learn to be friends with someone, and sometimes that eliminates some of the drama. But
Mm-hmm.
so I think we've got to teach our kids to not be sensitive and easily offended.
Yeah. And or if somebody says something that hurts our feelings, and then our kids see us like mama bear and all over that
Mm,
person every single time,
yeah,
what are we teaching them?
yeah, there should be no mama bear.
Yeah.
Okay, are you done with that one?
Yeah.
All right, my next one is shirk your duties whenever you can. And dad says, you are too occupied in important things to be bothered by mundane matters.
Mm.
So, when I was thinking about this, let everyone know how busy you are. And I feel myself in there, because I'm forever saying, I'm so busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to think everybody's busy. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just me. So a lot of times, as soon as those words come out of my mouth, I think, just like everyone else is busy. I'm not any busier than anybody else. But when things kind of weigh us down, we tend to say, I'm just so busy.
Mm-hmm.
And then have the mentality, somebody else will do it. Somebody else is going to take care of that. This was one that thought of, that if we want to be miserable, come from a place of no. Think really, really, really hard before we say yes. And then even before we say yes, we probably shouldn't do that. It's better to say no, because I really can't do that. And what is that saying about how 10% of the people do 90% of the work? And if you want something done, ask a busy person, because they'll get it done. But what about all of those people out there who are just not doing anything? They're not volunteering. They're not helping out. It makes me think of, like, we're going to this retreat, and we're actually going to a place where they do the cleanup. All we do is just take our things and go, which I love. But most retreats that we go to, the end of the retreat or the end of the camp, half of a day is spent in cleaning up after having been there either the whole weekend or the whole week. And you always know who those people are going to be that are over there talking next to the fence while everyone else is mopping. Well, not everyone else, but some people are mopping or sweeping. And I realize that there are times that we have to get out of the way. Yeah. We might have to get out of the way while, you can't be walking through somebody mopping. So I realize there are times that we can't all be in the middle of something. But if you're always the one that's having fun and talking and making more of a mess instead of getting in there, getting your hands dirty and helping out, then you're miserable. Even though you're having a good time at the time, it's just a miserable life, and you're making other people miserable too. And I was just thinking, and I jotted these things down. When is the last time I or you answered a need to take someone to the doctor? Because this happens sometimes. When's the last time you hosted a youth devotional in your home? When's the last time you offered to tend to the nursery? When's the last time you offered to teach a class? When's the last time you offered to babysit? What's the last funeral visitation you went to? When's the last time you visited someone in the hospital or took food to a shut-in? When's the last time you called your mom? What's the last special contribution you made, maybe to someone who's wanting to go on a mission trip, or for a preaching student? Or when's the last time you took a hamburger to someone that's on the corner that needs help? Just all of those things are our responsibilities as Christians. And if we are not doing them, who's going to do it? We're the hands and the feet of Jesus. And those are responsibilities that we have. But, like one of the ones earlier we were talking about, it feels good in the moment to not have to do the thing that you really don't want to do. But when you get busy serving, you realize what a joy it is. And Paul told Timothy in 1 Timothy 6 to instruct those who are rich in this present world, and that's all of us here in America, not to be conceited or fix hope on the uncertainty of riches, but to fix our hope on God, who richly supplies us with all things to enjoy. And then he goes on to say to instruct them to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, storing up for themselves a treasure of a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is life indeed. And I love that phrase, life indeed, because life indeed really is serving and doing for others and making other people happy. And, when our aim and goal in life is to be happy, we're never going to be happy. But when we live like Christ, when we make ourselves look as much as we can like the Lord, that's when we're going to find happiness, is living like God wants us to live. So sure, if you want to be miserable, shirk your duties whenever you can.
Excuse me. Well, just this week, we had two examples. We have a teacher's resource room, which sort of ends up being the catch-all junk room. And after every big event, BBS or camp or, all these things we're making room for other things. So we just take the furniture and whatever we find, and we end up shoving it into our teacher's resource room. Well, just this week, Dana Simpson, and I'm pretty sure other people helped her. I just don't know who all they are, but she went in there and spent a day, maybe more, organizing the whole thing. And I got to see it last night, and you just wouldn't even recognize it. There's all these organized bins, and everything is open and clean, and it makes you want to get in there and use it, and it's beautiful. And just think what she had to go through to decide to do that for all of us, give up an entire day at least of her time. And she's a busy person, to go down there and do that. And then one of our other members, Stacey Warren, has taken it on herself to kind of be responsible for keeping it stocked, cleaned, and organized. And has said, anytime you need something, let me know. I'm going to have a list in there. You can even write in there what's missing. And it's just such a small thing, but I know everybody else felt the way I did. Like, that's wonderful. That's amazing. You just made all of our lives that much better,
Yeah.
and it never would have even dawned on me to do that.
Yeah.
But it was such a huge, impactful thing that they did, as a really servant-hearted thing. And they probably saw it. And instead of like me going, man, somebody needs to get in here and clean this up. Whoever's in charge of this space. Yeah, whoever's in charge of this space has really dropped the ball. And they just went in there and did it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to Laura Warnes last night, and she has organized it's called, I think it's called Open Arms. I'll have to put this in the group next week because I may have the name wrong, but it's a closet. It's not just a closet. It's a huge room at the church building in San Marcos that they have taken gently used children's clothing and children's toys and equipment, like, changing tables and strollers, anything that you can use for children, families with small children. And they've invited the community in to come and take what they need. And I wanted to say it was for foster families, but it may be for more people than just that. But she is in charge of it. And I know Brenda Dugans has been helping her. But we were just talking last night I asked her how it was going. And she said it's really, really good. And it's really exploded. For the first month or two, they didn't have a lot of people visit. But then over the last month, they've had like 15 families come in.
Oh, wow.
And she said they really need more volunteers, and they've approached some people, and people are all, they want to, but then maybe they forget or they don't have as much time as they thought. But that kind of stuff is such a good work to be involved in, and people need our help. And it's not just Laura and Brenda, and it's not just Dana and I don't remember who else you said, Stacy. There's, wherever you are a member, there's somebody that needs help with something, with a pantry, cleaning up after a fellowship meal, to teach a class. There's so many things that really, they are our responsibilities. It's not someone else. If you are a Christian, it's your responsibility to help out with these things. So if you really want to find out what a joyful life you can have, it's in doing things for other people, not in sitting back and letting someone else do it.
Good one.
Okay.
All right. My last one is, if you want to be absolutely miserable, never forget a criticism or another person's mistakes. And I really appreciated this one too, because, it's just not fair to hold somebody hostage to their past. And maybe somebody hurt your feelings. They made a thoughtless remark to you at one time. It could have been hurtful, but maybe they didn't necessarily intend to, or even if they did, they insulted you without realizing it. Maybe you were overlooked or let down. Excuse me, sorry. That was 156. Maybe you were a witness to somebody on their worst day.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have been, but you were. Or you learned of their embarrassing past. So all these things, we get glimpses into the humanity of others. But if you really want to be miserable, hold them hostage to their past. And when an opportunity comes up for them to be put in a position, or somebody says something nice to them, or they want to be recognized for something, and you feel the need to say, but remember that time they, or I remember one time they, you'll be absolutely miserable if you do that. I think some people use this kind of knowledge as power.
Yeah.
Either over somebody or for their own ego. They can hold it over someone's head, and they can use it even as a wall or a wedge in building a relationship with somebody, because, instead of growing a relationship with that person, you can just think about everything that that might cause problems down the road, that you will certainly be a miserable person. And again, 1 Corinthians 13, verse 5 says, love keeps no records of wrongs and does not dishonor another person. And so, again, this is just one of those things. With all these things that we've talked about, I'm so thankful for the people in my life that are willing to overlook my worst days and my embarrassing moments and my embarrassing past or the thoughtless remarks that I've said. I know there have been plenty of them. So I don't know what causes us to hang on to those things instead of thinking people can grow. And that's what Jesus does. That's what Christianity is all about. It's walking in Christ and continuing to grow and mature as we do that. And just as we striving to do that and hope others see that in us, we should be doing the same for them. You know, they're not the same person they were 5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, or maybe even last year.
Right. That made me think of, I remember Lisa Ripperton in a Bible class one time saying, and she was talking about Sarah. You may have even been there, but she said, God does not judge us on our worst day. And I wrote that in my Bible because I thought, man, I need to hear that, because there's days when you just have a horrible day and nothing goes right and you feel terrible about yourself. You feel terrible about other people. And yet God doesn't judge us on that day. He wants us to get better and improve. But and I'm thankful for that. And while you were talking, I was just thinking, just a day or two ago, I was thinking about a young man who there was some kind of situation at camp that was really stinky and rotten, and he made trouble for people. But that was 20 years ago, and he's probably 35 now. And he's not the same kid. When I think of him, that's what I think of, but I shouldn't, because I know he's grown and changed. And I myself, like you just said, I am not the same person I was 2 months ago. Things have happened. Things have changed in my life. I've seen things differently, change in perspective. And so it's so important to let go, and to let go of those first impressions that we have had, and to let people have the same fresh slate that God gives them. Who am I to hold someone to a past that God does not hold them to when they've been forgiven? So yeah, that's a great one. And if you're done, my last one ties in a lot with that. Mine is refuse to forgive or show mercy to anyone. It's very similar to what you're talking about. And what Dad had said is accept no reasons for failure in others, make everyone aware of someone else's mistakes, and refuse to accept anything but perfection from your friends, if you have any left. He says, hold a grudge, nurse it, relive it over and over. And then I started thinking about, things that we've seen online. How many screenshots have we taken over things, maybe from a text that we are insulted by, or maybe it's something we screenshot on Facebook because we think they're going to delete that later. I'm going to remember this. It's just stuff that we hang on to, whether it's an argument or an insult. We don't let ourselves forget. And then if we really want to continue to be miserable, we've got to wait until they apologize before we even think about forgiving them. Because, really, why should I be merciful about or to anyone when they've been so rude to me? And man, this will make you miserable quicker than anything else. And we've just got to remember the humanity. You said this a minute ago. Remember the frailty and the humanity of every person. Remembering my own humanity and frailty. And there's a scene in, it's not called The Love Dare. What is that movie that The Love Dare came from? The one with Kirk Cameron. You know what I'm talking about?
It's not, there's one that's fireproof, and then there's one that's something
Fireproof. That's it. That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
But there's a scene in it when Kirk Cameron's character is talking to his dad about what his wife has been guilty of. And he's walking around this area. It's like some campground, and there's a cross. It's a Christian camp, and there's a cross built. And as he's walking, he looks up and he sees that cross. And it's like this realization dawns on him that God has forgiven him, and he's not forgiving his wife. And we've got to remember that God is not going to forgive us when we don't forgive others. There's that saying that to forgive is to set a prisoner free, and then to realize that prisoner was me. Then it made me think of Romans 12 and how we are to let love be without hypocrisy, be devoted to one another in brotherly love, give preference to one another in honor, rejoice in hope, persevere in tribulation, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. So don't wait, be the first one to extend forgiveness and mercy, and when we are that way, people are so much more apt to be that way with us. When we are humble and forgiving, and, if somebody apologizes, if we are the one to say, don't think another thing about it. I didn't think anything of it. Let's just move on and keep going. Or are we going to be the ones to say, you really shouldn't have done that, and I'm going to have to think about it? And I've known people that do that. So there's lots of other passages that I know would apply here. Colossians 3, we're chosen of God. And so we're to put on all of these things, heart of compassion and humility and forgiveness. And so we know this. This is what God wants us to be like. Be forgiving, be merciful, be as much as we can, be at peace with others. And I think we can be a whole lot more than we really are. So that was his last one. And we are really getting close to pushing our record on time here.
Yes. I just think that with all of these, we think they're too hard or too unreasonable. And, but if we just put God to the test, with all these passages and all these one another verses that we've been looking at, if we just put him to the test and try things his way, let go of that grudge and forgive, maybe we'll be surprised at how much more peace we feel in our own lives, and how much more willing we're able to extend grace to others, and how much joy that brings us. We think we're hanging on to this because it's too big of a hurt, or we don't want to give them permission to do it again, and that's just the right way to go about it, even though it completely goes against what God says in his word for us. So let's just put him to the test and handle all of these things in the way that he says. Or we can do it the way that we think is best and continue to live miserably.
All of these things too, if you think about it, it's how the devil wants us to live. He wants us to remember all of those grudges and let that root of bitterness take hold in our hearts. And he wants all those things. And are we going to let him win? Are we going to trust God, like you said, trust God and put him to the test? I wanted to just read the very end of what Dad said, because I thought, I could just, again, I could hear him saying these things, but he ended his article by saying, you might be able to be perfectly miserable without following these guidelines. But if you fall short, that is just one more way of achieving depression, despair, and distress. You've got to make your choice and then work at it. Have a miserable day.
That's good.
Yeah, it was a good one. It's I actually wrote these points in the back of one of my Bibles. And when I thought for us to talk about this today, I went looking for that Bible, and it's one that I left in Texas. So, but it's just something that I like to look back on occasionally to remind myself, don't be this way. Don't be miserable.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That was really good.
Yeah. Good topic. So the ending that we're doing now, I can't remember how you worded it last week. So I'm going to toss that to you. Share something good. Do you want to go first?
Good. Yeah, sure. So we're just going to share something each week of something that we like or found that we think our listeners might enjoy too. Something for you to look into. Mine's kind of silly this week. Okay. Do you like canned tuna?
Yeah.
Okay. So I saw somebody recommend this brand of canned tuna. It's called Safe Catch. If you're watching, you can see that's I hadn't either. But you can find it at Costco, and it is mercury tested. It's wild. Excuse me, wild
157.
Wild ahi yellowfin tuna. And anyway, I'd seen somebody else recommend it, and we tried it. It is so good.
What makes it better?
I don't know. It's really the flesh itself just looks really good. It looks like something you want to eat instead of gross, mushied up tuna in the can. It looks really good and fresh, and then it's got such good flavor. I could eat this straight out of the can, and normally I like a good bit of mayo in my tuna, before I put it on a cracker or a sandwich or whatever. But I could eat this straight out of the can. It is that good. So comes in packs like this of 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is it 6. In water or oil?
I think it's water.
Because I like to boil an egg and then mash that up in a good can of tuna. But if I ever come across a little piece of black stuff in my tuna, I'm like done with the bowl.
Actually, it's not even water. It is, the ingredients are yellowfin tuna and sea salt. That's it. It is so good.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go get some.
Yeah.
Good to know. All right. Yours? Mine is not something that you can have yet, but it is a book that Janie Cron, and you and I both worked with her at Christian Woman, and she's like a writing mentor to me. And we developed a friendship when we were working together there at Christian Woman. And she has a new book that's about to come out. I'm not sure exactly when, but she asked if I would read it and, quote, review it, write a few words about it. And it's called Songs in the Night. And I don't read a whole lot of nonfiction. I'm just not like one to sit down and read that. I like to read fiction. It's kind of an escape. I will use use nonfiction books for reference. And so I was kind of expecting, I always like the things that she writes, but I wasn't really expecting to sit and read it. And this is what I read on the way to Polishing the Pulpit and on the way home. And I downloaded it onto my iPad so that I could, underline and mark while I was reading it. And it was so good. It's Songs in the Night, and it's kind of a biography of David's life. But she tells his life story, which I've never really seen done in the proper timeline. And it's so, almost disjointed when you read it in scripture, because some of it's in First Kings and some of it's in First Samuel. And I've never really been able to pinpoint at what time this happened in his life. And so she started at the beginning and worked her way through. And parallels between his life and mine. She pointed out the frailty of David, but yet he was this great king and commander, this ruler, this leader who had all kinds of issues and all kinds of weaknesses. And so she didn't shy away from any of that, but really used the book to point out some areas that we need to make some corrections in our own lives. There's a lot of Bible geography in it, which, I loved that too, because I can see it in my mind. And so I'm excited for that to come out. And that probably will be, I would imagine, towards the end of the year. I'm not sure, but Songs in the Night is the name of it. It's by Janie Cron. Look forward to it.
Good grief.
200.
Well, I had a chance to preview it also.
Did you?
Yes. And I like how when she related it to the Psalms that he wrote, I've always loved, in particular, David's Psalms anyway. They're just so impactful. They feel so relevant.
Heartfelt.
You can't ever read them the same again.
Yeah.
After reading the backstory that she has explained for each of those Psalms. So there's a Psalm to go with each, almost chapter of his life. And I also appreciated how at the end of them, she had, your own song in the night.
Yeah.
And for the personal application part, and what would yours say? What should yours say? And yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah. And she has, discussion questions, research things that were not fluff, not some of them I was like, oh, I don't know the answer to that. And I didn't answer every one of them. I'll go back through it later. I didn't have the time to do that. But anyway, yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Good stuff.
All right. It's been a good discussion and almost a good 2-hour discussion. We're at 1 hour and 52 minutes. So we won't belabor the goodbyes, but I've enjoyed talking with you. And
I have too.
You're not a miserable person. You're a wonderful person. And I appreciate all your comments and what you added to this. And I loved bringing some of Dad's writings back to life. And there's lots of good ones. So thank you for everything you said.
I always enjoy chatting with you.
Yeah, I love you lots. And until next time.
Keep looking up.
Keep coughing.
Keep looking up. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.